Good morning, everybody. Early sailing, just got across the bridge. They close that sucker here sometimes, and then now I have to leave a half hour earlier for work. It's kind of funny. I know it's going to take people a little bit to log on, so I'm going to go into it. One thing I find about Ontario, they got partitions, right? Concrete partitions on the freeways. And one thing Alberta does is when they know they're going to do major works on a major freeway, they'll take a front end loader, they'll remove the partitions, and then they'll divide the other opposing traffic for the portion of the freeway they're closing in a one-way traffic, right? So they split it. They split the inconvenience. But Ontario, they don't seemingly do that. I don't know why. It's backwards, I think. I think you want to move traffic as best you can, but they never give any notice. They just do it, and we're closed for this many days or whatever, but they don't tell you a heads up. So tough to get around Ontario, and it's great distances usually. So it's kind of funny how they say some provinces are ahead of others, but in other ways they're not. And I noticed that about a lot of things as I get to know Ontario intimately, I guess. It's some things I scratch my head at. Who came up with this, right? No rhyme or reason, but I see people are logged on here, so I'm going to get into it here. Just a beautiful last 24-hour period here. First Nations just completely coming on board, which is great. I talked to Manitoba First Nations so I could get the invite for the Manitoba Chiefs and Grand Chief. That's coming in 2 weeks. But I have a phone conference today about all of that, as well as Saskatchewan Chiefs. So it's really opened me up quite a bit. I've gone beyond Alberta now. So I love that as we get into treaty chiefs. It's important to hit Saskatchewan and Manitoba. That's excellent. We'll see how Northern Ontario goes and the work with Six Nations as I continue. All important items for sure, and I'll never say no. NDP has really shared a narrative, and I just want everybody to know this is for Canadians and First Peoples. I have the entirety of every election cycle in Canada federally, who was overseeing which region, who won those elections, what representatives from which parties went forward. Then I go over all acts pertaining to residential schools, especially sections of the Indian Act 113, 114, and 115. You all don't need to absolutely know this. I mean, I've published 115, the clear genocide of the government of Canada, of representatives. And I'll tell you, everybody, I got every politician dead to rights. They talk about the crime in ICC. Oh, anything before 2002 is off limits. Sorry to disappoint or burst your bubbles, but when a crime is current from a set year, and that crime is current every day, year after year, the crime's committed all the way till today. Right now, as I shoot this video, I'm sorry, none of that's off limits. And had anybody out there, Canadian expert, any of them had done 2 years of work physically with the ICC as I did, the only Canadian, in fact, the only Canadian to sit in with ICC almost 6 weeks ago now, I did. I sat there, the only Canadian, nobody else. And then these parties, these NDP trying to steal narratives or a version of a narrative, or liberals and conservatives, if you don't do the work, you don't get it right. And that proves it, because 75% of the time in Canada's political history since 1952, meaning Canada assumed full control of the Crown power. Understand that, Canadians, First Peoples, the politicians assumed full control of the Crown power. Everything from 1952 onward is all on all the Canadian politicians, solely and absolutely. This goes in division of powers under Section 91 and 92, goes on all the way till today. Now the federal government says, oh, since 2014, we shifted that to the provinces. We're not liable anymore. You're liable under Section 115, A and B, and then the provinces take the rest. I've got you dead to rights. Every major political party, every sitting MP and MLA who voted for this stuff, as well as all municipalities under municipal acts from the provinces. I have their municipal passed bylaws against the First Peoples. I got it entirely. Some people do the work and others don't do nothing. I'm sorry, First Nations, and they're warning me. I've been warned that it should, going forward with Manitoba here in the next 2 weeks with the chiefs and the Grand Chief, that I'm warned that, oh, NDP rules the roost there. Well, the truth rules, absolutely. And if NDP doesn't like the truth, I don't know what to tell you, but the chiefs will get the truth. And I'm going to give them the truth of ICC entirely. And I'm going to show the African narrative, where African leaders themselves thought that they would impose their own human rights, or they would adopt that crown power from their former colonial masters, and then they would do that on said peoples. That got them the death penalty, because it does not matter if you're black, red, yellow, white, brown. It does not matter. When it comes to human rights, the five allies have determined, have solidified international laws on human rights, and they carry the death penalty up to and including. They decide who goes under what terms, and there is no color spectrum for that. It's just right now, Canada hasn't been brought forward. People tell me, oh, ICC can't prosecute for upwards of a year. That's if you haven't been working on the case for until today, which Canadians are looking at it now. That group of lawyers put it forward. They put it forward just weeks ago. Some of us have been working with the P5 for 2 years, 2 solid years. They're well informed. Doesn't matter who I get to present. The reality is they're all awaking to it. They all know what Canada is, and they know what I got. And many, and I repeat, many world experts, best of the best, who actually advise some of the justices around the world in the highest courts, EU, ICC, list goes on. Not only advise, they've taught some of these judges, where their knowledge is the basis of what the judges rule on. And sometimes they're called even to testify on cases in their expert opinion. So what NDP, Liberal or Conservative say is irrelevant. They haven't done the work. They absolutely have no idea what they're talking about. And Canadian journalists going off about Canadian experts who haven't even stood on the world stage, have never talked to a P5, and have never had the grace of the ICC court in any kind of education or knowledge, don't have a leg to stand on. You don't need to be a lawyer. The ICC has the lawyers. They have the prosecutors. And the UNSC and the laws and the binding world laws they put forward are bound and ratified, which are not backed up in any way, shape, or form by Canada or Canada's legal system. Never has been, because of the Crown embedded colonial power. The days of the politician are numbered. It's going to be over. This ICC case will go, and everybody Why do you think I'm developing a UN resolution? And why do you think China's sponsoring it? Because I've done the work. And how do you suppose UK, USA, Russia, I missed one there, didn't I? UK, France, Russia, and USA. How are they going to vote on a resolution well developed through the modules and learning we're all going through right now? Now, there's more to do next week. Sometimes we get delayed. I have to stop and pause for the First Nations, the treaties. I have to gain an audience like that. Saskatchewan, Manitoba, it's important. It's going to help me go forward. And you know what? It's going to put the NDP, liberal and conservative narratives to bed. And I want to awaken the chiefs. Now, they can choose to follow the path which many African nations have followed in the last 30 years and ended up in absolute atrocity themselves and in the ICC. And for those who haven't looked at the 30-year history, I would go look at it. Because you're going to find a lot of people imprisoned and executed. Absolutely. Again, it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is or your ethnicity. Genocide's genocide. And there are world-binding laws that no General Assembly can protect you from. We're going to go through the fake narrative of PPC. We're going to do that too. They're trying to do a liberal-style backdoor double deal with the Crown Power to trick all Canadians about the evil UN. Now, there is a whole side of the UN General Assembly, 70 of the worst states in the world with the least amount of real rights for the people. They may have them encoded and enshrined, but like my friend Richard Albert says, just because they have that, there's also other powers of the autocracy that actually throws them all away. Canada's one of them. Has many rights and freedoms, but they can be usurped by government anytime. We're going to look at the General Assembly initiatives where they declared it with no vote, which means it's not binding world law, and how countries like Canada pull them out of the garbage to impose them on their people. And again, the UNSCP5, think of them as the 5 chiefs of the world in charge of law, has said no, 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 led mostly by the United States of America. And that was Republican and Democrat alike. So we can be thankful. There's hope on the horizon. We can get things done. We just need to narrate it right. And China's right. Honor the P5 and the resolution will go, I believe that. And we're all going to get to design that. We don't need Canada's delegate because we got China, the delegate, UNSCP5. That's major. This is the most powerful action any Canadians could ever do. I know what I'm doing, everybody. I'm sorry it's being slowed down. But again, when openings come up like that, when we get audiences with chiefs, we take it. We take it because it's for all of you. For the third, second, and absolutely all First Peoples. Knowledge is power. Education is the path forward. And it's time that everybody learns the truth about Canada's politicians, our political system, and the world learns of the autocracy. Last point I'm going to make, World Constitution Day, August 1st. I'm now hard at work, full-time on that. 2 great presentations. First ever, a Treaty Indian from Treaty 4 is going to give a monumentous speech absolutely to all the P5 and teach all of you a tremendous amount. Logged, going to be in world constitutionalism, absolutely in all the free world. They're going to learn the truth from the horse's mouth, so to speak, as well as I'm going to give a great narrative on the Crown Power and how we can destroy it, what my mission is here, and what I'm bringing for Canadians across the board and all First Peoples. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Almost at work. Bye now.